Thank you for joining us for the Barbados Today evening news for Friday, December 8th. I am Marie-Claire Williams. Finance Minister Chris Sinckler today announced that the new company, which will take over the affairs of CLICO, will be operational early next year. CLICO collapsed in 2009 following the demise of its parent company, CL Financial. Addressing Parliament this afternoon, Sinckler outlined the timeline for the new life insurance company to be up and running.
Phase 2 of the closing should begin as well next month, which is a presentation of the database records as at the 31st of December 2017 by the judicial managers, transfer and conversion of the databases from CLICO into Resolution Life. So all of the electronic and all of the database information would now be in the new company and out of the hands of the judicial manager as we wrap that process up. Resolution Life will open in late January to service those policies once the information has been transferred. February 2018 is the final closing notice presentation of any outstanding information, financial information by the judicial managers, and verification of all the information by Resolution Life, and an adjustment of any adjustments to the assets and liabilities on the balance that have been transferred.
Health Minister John Boyce today sought to give assurances that his ministry is taking steps to address concerns over the ongoing sewage spill on the South Coast. Residents and businesses in the area have been complaining about threats to their health and livelihoods as a result of the spill. Yesterday, the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association said the situation is unacceptable and could cost Barbados millions of dollars in tourism business. Boyce told Barbados Today he has been in consultation with the various ministries on the matter.
We've been working with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Barbados Water Authority in mitigating the impacts of this very serious breach in terms of the operation of the South Coast Sewage Plant. And we've been having constant high-level meetings to make sure that the officers of the Environmental Health Department with the Ministry of Health are out there with the Barbados Water Authority and on their own, monitoring and making sure the public is aware of the kind of practices they must maintain to ensure that there is no spread of any kind of disease. This is being intensified, and very shortly the Ministry of Health is going to be issuing a release from the Government Information Services advising Barbadians, especially those living and working on in the affected areas, and of course to be shared with the Ministry of Tourism and our visitors, of the cautions that we must take.
Meanwhile, the Water Resources Management Minister, Dr. David Estwick, says there are several serious issues affecting the South Coast plant caused by degradation.
People need to understand, you're talking about a 5-foot diameter tube, right? That is a mile long. Right. And that 5-foot diameter tube is built of concrete. Right. And inside that tube, there are two smaller 20-inch tubes. And that whole thing is surrounded by in concrete. Right. So that if you have over time any destabilization of the support structures of that mile-long network, and you know that it's placed is in a swamp. Right. So once that begins to give, you may have multiple breaks along the line, which is going to break both the pressure line and the gravity feed line. Right. These are big jobs. Okay. And people need to understand that it is not that we're procrastinating. It is that you have to do it right. Okay. And make sure that you have applied the correct diagnostics, the correct technologies, and so on. So we have a team of persons here, I think in from Trinidad yesterday, or they're coming in today, who have dealt with many of these sort of situations in Trinidad and Tobago. I know the technical teams have also been in contact with personnel from Europe as well as from the United States, so that we can apply the technology now.
On to sports. West Indies are looking to score their first victory in the Test series against New Zealand in the second match, which begins this evening, Caribbean time. Craig Brathwaite replaces suspended captain Jason Holder, and he says following the disappointing performance in the opening test, the team plans to be more disciplined against the Black Caps.
Well, at times, we let it get fall after probably starting well, but we have capable enough guys to, from number one straight down, to build big partnerships, and that will be key for us, building those partnerships and giving ourselves a good total.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region. The Bahamian Parliament has passed a raft of financial services bills in its latest efforts to comply with international standards. We get the details in this report from ZNS News.
Attorney General and Leader of Government Business in the Upper Chamber, Carl Bethel, says the idea of distinct competitive advantage is fading. He told the Senate this morning that the world is taking a deeper look at tax avoidance and evasion.
You can mitigate based on imbalances in your own law. But once you go outside, this is the way I see it going, that then becomes something that will be soon they'll try and criminalize, called aggressive tax avoidance. Not tax avoidance. If you're in your own country and you juggle between laws, that's okay. That's tax avoidance based on what we have on our law book. When you go abroad to do it, that's tax avoidance that is aggressive and therefore worthy of censure and action.
Opposition Senator Fred Mitchell notes, however, that the double standard still nags him and seems to go against the latest economic thrust.
I have always, in connection with the financial services sector, raised the point about the ethics of these developed countries and their conduct towards smaller countries. And there is something off about their ethics, because what they have done in doing all of these things, and we are fighting to keep jobs and all the rest of it, is they've essentially gone back on the creed of free trade, which was something they were touting 10, 15 years ago.
Senator Raynard Hanfield admits he once had reservations over what he felt was the dictatorial nature of larger countries, but concedes information on the issue has changed his stance to a certain degree.
And on the international scene, Britain and the European Union today reached a deal on Brexit, paving the way for talks for future trade ties. It also eased pressure on UK Prime Minister Theresa May and boosted hopes of an orderly Brexit. We get more in this Reuters report.
They got there eventually, although some say Brexit dramatics have wasted months. Britain and the EU have finally struck a divorce deal that paves the way for talks on trade.
Getting to this point has required give and take on both sides. And I believe that the joint report being published is in the best interests of the whole of the UK.
London, Dublin and Belfast worked through the night to break an impasse over the status of the Irish border. The deal intends to avoid a hard frontier.
I think this does represent a new start for Theresa May. She's finally managed to secure a deal. Clearly it's been back of a fag packet, last minute. It's probably not the best agreement, but you know what? It is an agreement.
But with May's Northern Irish coalition partners, the DUP, proving they can stall negotiations, some say others could now wade in too.
The big joke running around the city this morning is how many new hospitals Northern Ireland is going to get for agreeing the terms last night. But certainly there are moves in other parts of the UK, particularly Scotland, who have been seizing on this possibility of aligning more alignment with Europe.
We all know that breaking up is hard, but breaking up and building a new relation is much harder.
And the EU says the biggest challenges are still to come.
That's news this evening. Remember, you can get more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also find us on Mix 96.9 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good evening.